podcast. Today my guest is Jeff Martin. His new music group, Visors, is an electronic pop group, putting out groovy tunes. I'll have one at the end of the podcast here. Jeff, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. This whole podcast thing has been a really great chance to catch up with people I haven't seen in a while. And I know you're one of those guys.
Yeah, dude, we used to see each other all the time.
Yeah, down at Bourbon Street. That's where we first met. And,
absolutely.
When I met you, you were mostly, I mostly knew you as like kind of like a booking agent. You were kind of helping with some of the production down there.
I was PMing and then helping Paul a little bit. Paul Manna, he actually brought me back into the business. I had jumped out for a long time, and he's like, I need you there. So I came back. Yeah.
I didn't realize till much later that you were a drummer and like a musician. I think I'd seen you like kind of jamming on the drums with someone.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you were on that side of it too. So
yeah, that was my first foray into music, was as a drummer, and then somehow you get into production eventually, you know. So, but it's been fun.
So the way I start out is I kind of like go back. I like to talk about kind of like what kind of first got you into music. Like when I was a kid, you know, my dad bought me like the Matchbox 20, Yourself or Someone Like You album, and that kind of started me down that path.
Sure.
And so like when you were, I don't know if you were a kid or...
I was a kid, yeah.
You know,
I was a kid.
What your first records were that kind of...
I know all of them.
...made you fall in love with music.
Yeah. Yeah, music has been I would say it's always been the number one thing. So, and that started out with Kiss, 1977. I was 5, and my babysitter had Kiss Alive 2, and just seeing Gene Simmons' face with the blood all over it, and I was just like, I was sold. And then the music was just like, what? At 5, it was incredible. So, yeah, that was it. I mean, and you know, they're cartoony. So for a kid, it was like, this is dope. That was it. I was hooked.
Yeah, I could imagine like seeing them as these like larger than life people, and then like eventually like you see them without the makeup, and you're just like
a little weird, actually.
It's like kind of takes you out of it a little bit, but so you said you started off as a drummer.
Yeah.
When did that first come into play?
That was much later. That was probably in the early 90s. I tried playing guitar and I just couldn't figure it out. And a friend of a friend had a drum kit, and I went over and I just immediately played. I don't know how I did it. I just sat down and it just came to me, and I said, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. And so, in fact, I think I bought that drum kit from that kid, and that was my first drum kit. And then I just figured it out. But yeah, I never thought I'd be a drummer. So...
Who were like the ones that are like, when you think of, oh, I want to be a drummer like that? Who were the ones that?
Yeah, there was no one at the time, but I was listening. I was such a Cure fan, such a huge Cure fan at the time. So Boris Williams, I just loved the way he played. It was very simple, but it was very cool. So I was like really learning. I was learning every Cure song. That was how I was kind of figuring it out. And then I just started finding these people that influenced me. Siggy from the Sugar Cubes was one. Stuart Copeland from the Police. So I started finding these people as I listened to their music. I was like, wait, how do they do that? It's different. It's weird. So yeah. And I have a list now still. But
yeah. And then I'm guessing that led to like playing in bands at some point.
Yeah. I didn't have any intention on playing in a band. And then my buddy Sterling Ruby, who now he was a professional skateboarder when we were skating together. He had a band. Now he's like the biggest modern artist in the world. Look him up. It's insane how successful he is. But he was like, hey, we need a drummer. Can you just play along to a drum machine? And so I had no idea what I was doing, but that was easy for me. So like, learning how to play, that's how I learned how to play drums, really, was playing along with that drum machine that they had programmed. And so that was it. Started playing with them. And then my first studio experience was we drove to Chicago and recorded with Steve Albini, which was like right after he had done Nirvana. Like he had done In Utero, I think. We came in right after that. And I mean, that's nerve-wracking. I wasn't a drummer.
What was that group called?
Dear Heart. They were called Dear Heart, and the record is available to stream, but someone later took the name. So our record is mixed in with his records, which is unfortunate because
Yeah.
it's completely different. It's noisy, it's loud, it's heavy, and his stuff is really kind of chill.
It's funny if Brad would hear, he'd be talking about like copywriting and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had to hit him up the other day, actually. Me and Brad
Yeah.
I had to get a lawyer about something. So, Brad's the guy to know about all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of in the clear because I just kind of use my name. It's
Yes.
kind of like a version of my name.
They can't really
But
take your name from you. You know what I mean?
But that said, I've had other Will Sims like pop up and slide into my Spotify
Yeah.
page at sometimes the worst moments.
Have you been able to like get them out of your?
And for the most part, like on the main sites, I've been like Apple and Spotify, I've been able to get them separated.
That's great.
To another account, but like I tried to do it on Amazon, and it was like a whole thing.
Amazon's tough.
Yeah,
Amazon, Deezer, Tidal, they're just like.
Yeah. So I try not to make a big deal about it. I just hope that most people that listen to it will be like, yeah,
They know you,
This is
right.
one quality, and this is another quality,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the big thing. So
Well, we just had that happen, and that's why I actually contacted Brad, is that this guy just popped up in September trying to use the Visors name, and I was really nice about it at first. I was like, hey, man, you just got to change it. And he never replied. So then the lawyer was like, don't be nice. And so
Yeah.
I wasn't. And so he immediately pulled it all down. But that's having the name Visors being it's just one word. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
someone's eventually going to keep doing that. But
yeah, I mean, you got it. And you don't have to
Yeah,
put
we have
any
it.
like weird numbers or
Nope.
like symbols.
Nope,
It's
we have
easy.
it.
Like that's the thing that like is a shame about a lot of bands. It's like great name, but like going to be hard for people to find you if they don't
Yeah.
see that name on stage. You know?
Yeah. And Visors also to Google. Oh, geez, man. That's,
Yeah.
you're just going to get these hats. You're just going to get a bunch of hats. And so.
So yeah, so you said Deerheart.
Deerheart, yeah. And I ended up being in that band for a good long while. And like, that's how it really started to kind of figure out how to play. And so the nice thing about that group was that I could then play with a click better than most people because that's what I was used to playing with. So then after that, I went out to LA for a little bit, and I was getting some studio work because I was good with a click and things like that. And I was playing with a band called Ghetto Blaster, and so yeah, and it just kind of snowballed from there as a drummer. And then the Heavycoats were in the 2000s. If you might remember them, I don't know, but that was my big thing, 2004, 2005. Yeah.
Yeah.
Until
so
this.
This is all like news to me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Did you ever play with anyone in the scene, like any other groups that were kind of around, like when we first met?
Not really. No. Heavycoats, we played with a lot more like kind of indie rock bands, and we ended up because I knew everyone in the business, we ended up being able to open for so many bands at the time, like the Killers and things like that. So
Nice.
So we were able to do a lot, and then that just kind of ran its course with me being, just not getting along with the bandmates and things like that. So, yeah. And then when I left that, I went back into cycling hardcore and like started racing again. And like, I put music behind me for a long time. I don't know why I'm back.
Sometimes, the moment strikes. I mean, I know it on like the Visors bio kind of says it kind of, I guess, came to be over the course of the pandemic. Like,
It did.
And that was kind of the golden moment. I wasn't as focused on music then as I could have been. I was kind of more focused on like, investing in like new equipment
Sure.
and kind of like building up the gear that I had and getting that in a better place. But
it was a weird time. I mean, it was a very weird time, and a lot of bad happened during that period. Like, my mom passed from COVID, unfortunately, and so there's a lot of bad. But the one thing that I always come back to was that it was a good chance for me and my girlfriend, and our dogs were getting older, and they eventually passed, but we actually got to spend time with each other.
Yeah.
And everyone was freaking out because they couldn't go to Applebee's, and I'm like, dude, chill, just like get back to your roots, and like figure out what's not working or something.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I don't think about it as much now. I don't know, like you saw, my dad passed away recently, but like I think about recently. I didn't have as much time to hang out with him because I've been working a lot.
Sure.
But during the pandemic, like we were living in an apartment in Parkville, and I got him into Netflix.
That's
and we
amazing.
were watching like all these different shows
That's awesome,
together.
man.
So it was really cool to get to hang out with him then, and that was that was kind of like one of those cool things that, you know.
Yeah.
Because I basically was able to go on unemployment and just.
Yeah, I
like,
was too, yeah.
I kind of went from like being a real workhorse to doing like nothing.
Yeah.
And I like, I really, it was really nice to kind of have that moment. And
well, we don't give ourselves enough breathing space. And that is, I have a hard time with that. I'm a shark. Like if I'm not swimming, I die. And the pandemic was like, you have no options. So just deal with it. And like I said, we look back at that time, and for all the bad, and there was a lot of bad. I had friends pass from COVID, but for us internally in our little family there, it was actually kind of an enjoyable time.
So you're I guess lockdown and COVID. What kind of got the gears turning and turned it into you started like working on music?
Yeah.
What kind of led to that?
I really don't know. I just wanted to start writing beats because we used to do so in Dear Heart. We used to write beats on this Akai sampler, and it was so hard. It was so difficult to do it back then. And like then I found this little program, and I was like, wait, I just want to like program drum beats. That's all I wanted to do. And then I was like, oh, well then I can easily play a little pad on that. Oh, okay, this is starting to come together.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, wait, let me format this into a song. Because the way Dear Heart worked actually was that Sterling would program a lot of the drum parts with everything there, and we would just write to it. And so I was like, I could probably do that. And so that's what I started doing. And then I would just write a whole song, just the drums, and then be like, okay, what goes on top of that? Where's this? Where's that? And then I realized my limitations pretty early on. I said, well, I can't do a lot of this, but I have good ideas. And so I started sending them to friends of mine. I sent them to my friend Mark at Sony, and he loved it. He was like, oh, this is cool. Keep doing this. And I was like, okay, well, you're backing me up on that, so I'll keep going. And then I talked to Tom Lamacchio, a good friend of mine, who's just been doing it his whole life. And he started cleaning up some of my stuff and making them more songy. And I was like, wait, this is like a viable, fun thing to do. And I had no intention. On doing music again, but it just happened. And then I started writing, and I was writing for 2 years straight.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of turned into like a little bit of like collaborative thing too, because I know she had the
whole thing is
on
collaborative.
The one song, and now
Yeah, the idea always from the beginning. Once I realized that, once Sony actually pulled us in and said, we'll give you this development deal. Once they did that, I was like, well, it's going to be a featured artist thing because I can't pull people, but I can pull their fans.
Yeah.
And I can't sing. So it's just a win-win. And so that's how it started. And we're backed up. We've probably got a good 10 more singles like stacked up, and it's all featured artists. It's all featured artists. So that makes it easier. You know what I mean? That makes it easier, especially I let them write, and then we split royalties a certain way, but that makes it easier. I just do the instrumentation and like I said, I mean, the whole thing is collaborative. Back in when Tom was actually kind of in Visors more, Tom did a lot of work. He did a lot of things to help. He did a lot on Fine Line, that song that just came out. So, it's like it's just kind of figuring out what I can and can't do.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've heard has been like super groovy.
Thank you. Yeah,
very smooth sounding. Like doesn't feel like it's this overproduced thing.
Yeah,
like,
it's really not.
I feel like a lot of the thing I hear these days is just like songs that feel like they have nothing to them, but they're just put together to throw out.
Yes.
To generate streams. So.
Well, it's really easy to get great sounding stuff, and it's really there was the loudness wars that happened and all this stuff, and it's like you can get anything to sound great, but are you writing songs? What are the songs like? You know what I mean? So I'm not really, but it just happens that we have a lot of good people in our corner that help mix and stuff like that. So our stuff's going to sound great, but it's not, the first thing is the song. I want to make sure the song is good, so.
Now you said you're also working on like another project. Have you done like stuff like that before? I think you said you were working on like something that's going to be coming out.
Oh, I've got so much stuff going on. Is
that like kind of something that's new to you, or is that something you've done before and it's kind of just like?
No, it's new. I'm
not sure how much you could talk about. So
yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm really excited about is this thing with Michaela Dietz called Mac Vista. It's a hip hop group that we we kind of joking around. She's a voice actor. She does a lot of big things. She's like the voice of Starburst. So she's pretty deep into that. And I just kind of was joking with her, and I said, why don't we start a rap group? And when she said, yeah, let's do it, I was like, you have to understand, I'm serious. And she was like, oh, okay. And the next thing you know, we have songs. And then she was going out on YouTube and learning, like getting tutorials on how to rap. And she came out and she just nailed it. And she was like, wait, this is a thing. I'm like, yeah, this is a thing. Let's do it. And so that is actually a big deal for me this year, because now we're going to make it into a cartoon to pitch to like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. So that's my big thing right now. I mean, Visors is always going to be my thing.
Yeah.
But I like to keep things diverse. I have to.
Well, that's cool. Like, I think that that's one of those things that I think a lot of creative people have in common is like, first of all, it's so hard to just like really get into the one thing that you want to get into, but then like kind of branching out, there's always that fear of like, should I do this?
Right.
You know, but you know, like, one of the other things I like to talk about is kind of like that moment of like, have you had that moment yet where you feel like you just kind of actualized this thing?
Oh, for sure.
Like,
for sure.
You know,
for sure. All of it is. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like I make a living now. I make a living just by doing all these random things. It's like, if an opportunity comes across my desk, I take it. It's not. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. In fact, it's kind of probably a fault of mine because I take on too much.
Yeah, being a yes man is like we always like real thing. I've been guilty of it too. Sometimes I take on projects and I'm like, why am I doing this? But then there's other times where it's like, you know, like with this video thing I was telling you, I was like, I want to do this, but if I do it, I want it to be good.
Exactly.
I don't want to just do it just to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I want to do it and I want it to be something great.
I don't blame you. I mean, you it's all a representation of you, right? So you want it to be out there. You know, the nice thing about Visors, and not to segue, but like the nice thing about Visors is I'm a control freak, and Visors gives me this luxury to say I don't care as long as it sounds good in the end. Because like working with a lot of people, I can only control so much, and so when those vocals start coming back, it's amazing. It's like I never thought it would sound like this, and this is way better than I ever anticipated. So like to take the reins off is pretty nice. And same thing with everything I'm doing at the moment. So
cool, man. So have you guys been doing any live shows or anything like that yet?
Yeah. Well, because we left Sony after 2 years of them not releasing our music, basically not trusting us as a new artist. They I mean, it was
heard stuff about that with like even with bigger artists, like we don't want to release your stuff yet, especially over the pandemic. It was like not a good business move.
And we were right after
unless you were Taylor Swift, of course. Yeah.
Well, right, exactly. But so what they ended up doing was we would submit songs without vocals or with like, you know, some scratch track or whatever it is. And like their idea was, hey, you write good stuff, let's send it to the A-listers and see if they'll buy it. And so I sat on songs for 2 years. I mean, some of them had like 6 month terms and things like that, and no one ever bought them. So, but you know, it's like the song that we just released, Fine Line, was originally written and submitted or sent to Dua Lipa. And so, you know, had that happened, that would have been amazing, you know, but it didn't. And the song still turned out great. But they didn't trust releasing us as an artist.
Yeah.
But if it's not translating to sales, then what are we doing? We're spinning our wheels. So then we went from that, and then Arbutus out of Montreal, which is Grimes' label, which is the label that kind of got Grimes to where she is. They said, hey, can we release these 2 songs with Moon King? And Sony was like, go for it. So that was it. So we went from Sony to Arbutus, and then Arbutus didn't want to keep moving. So with the other stuff, so we were in hiatus, and I didn't know what to do. So what better way to keep the momentum but doing shows all year? So that's what we did. We just jumped on every show we could, you know, within reason. We wanted to do good shows, and it kept us afloat until we got our new deal. So yeah, we did a lot of shows this year.
Is there like a live band element to it, or is it more of like a kind of EDM type
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, there's a few different versions to do it. All of our management team, we've got a bunch of people that float around us doing management, all agreed to have 3 or 4 different ways to perform, given any circumstance. I mean, we've done it where Dan just DJs, and that's it, and I'll sell merch. And we've done it where I'm up there playing a percussion setup alongside the songs. And then this year we're going to put it together as a full band because I want to start writing with people as opposed to writing on my own. So we're going to have as many ways as we can to do it.
Yeah, the one band I always think of, like, because I'm not like a super big EDM guy. Like, to me, like, I've heard a lot of it, and you know, it's fun stuff to dance to, and like I can imagine going to shows and just like you know, jumping and raving. But I always think of this band that I saw at I think it was at Virgin Mobile Free Fest. I think it was like they only did like 1 or 2 of them at Merriweather, and there was this band there called Holy Fuck. I think they were from Canada, and it was basically like an EDM group. But they had a live drummer and a bass player, and then 2 guys with just all this shit on a table.
Oh, sure.
And they were just like sampling all these different sounds and looping them and like putting effects on them and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like the craziest thing I've seen like an electronic group do. Like
that sounds fun. I mean, that sounds
performance
amazing.
Thing. Like, and I've seen other groups that are kind of on that line too. I saw one group, they were at Ram's Head one time. I think I did like a load-in for them. But they were a 2-piece act, and it was very like electronic music based. I wish I could remember their name right now. But
well, with this, when I do the percussion setup, I play along with the songs, and that hype the crowd up.
Yeah.
You know, I try to get out there and hype the crowd up, and that can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun, but depends on your audience. You know, like we did shows with Paul Oakenfold this year, which were great shows. I mean, the crowd ate it up, and then we did, I don't know, but some audiences aren't as receptive, but is what it is, you know.
Any like highlight shows you could think of offhand, like places you played that you were just like, that was nuts.
I mean, State Fair was fun. We did that show with Quinn, and it almost got rained out completely, and it was like the stage was slippery, so I was worried about running around, and like it was stressful, and I was flying out the next day to go do something. But in retrospect, it was an experience, and it was fun, and the kids liked it. So that was good, because I was worried about his fan base. I was like, we're not college music or whatever age group these kids are. And they, you know, I'm 51, and I'm playing to 20-year-olds. It's like, I feel like there's probably a disconnect, but I think the music is what it is. So.
And not on the same level. I did a show last night at the Horse, and it was just one of those things, like you're never quite sure with a holiday weekend like this, what the turnout's going to be like. But I just knew that I was going into it feeling like total crap.
Right.
And I was just like, I just want to get through this night. Got a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow. And yeah, like I got there, loaded all my stuff in, and then like I'm going to put my stuff up on stage, and I noticed that like a bunch of like drunk kids like swiped my water bottles and stuff. And I was just like, and sure enough, we were setting up, and those same kids come up holding my water bottles, and they're like, "Do you guys take requests?" And I looked at them and I said, "No."
Wow.
I said, "You guys stole my water bottles, and that's not cool." And then like they were nice. I think like the girls were really drunk, and the boyfriends were like had their heads. So one of them ran across the street and bought a bunch of water bottles and brought them back.
Oh wow.
And then like from then on, like it was just crazy the whole night. Like everyone was singing and dancing.
That's
and having
fun.
This insanely. It was like one of those things where like at 1:30 there was just this big crowd of people in front of us, and like they were like turning on the lights in the venue. I was like, "I'm really sorry, guys. We got to stop."
Yeah.
They're going to start kicking everyone out. Like, and they were like, "No, one more song." And it's just like one of those things where like you're just like I don't know how tonight's going to go, but then it ends up being this like crazy.
And you know, I
can
take that and say like, I look at that with everything. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not feeling all that social that day, and I get into a social situation, I always feel better after it. It's like I'm not up for it. Yeah, for something. Like, I don't know. Like you know, and as far as live music, like I mean, I've played live music my whole life. I wouldn't say my heart's into live music, but if we have to do it, we'll have to do it, you know? And it kept us up, it kept us afloat all year. It kept us like with listeners and followers and all that stuff. So, and then we finally got a new label deal, and I was like, okay, we can stop playing live now for a while. So that's what we did.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice too, though, like just to get out there. Have you done like any of those shows where like you show up and it's just like crickets?
No, not yet. And that's, and again, you know, I worked for Live Nation for a long time. I still, to this day, like, I think they just sent me, I might be going to Fayetteville to do something for them. So I'm fortunate. I can just, hey, here's this show. Can we jump on? And it, you know, I know there'll be a crowd there. And, you know, it's a resource, you know what I mean? Like, but I've also paid my dues in this business, so I feel like I can do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, obviously no one ever wants that to happen, but sometimes when, like, I play in a cover band, Phantasm, and we play out a lot, and, like, there's so many shows where we show up, and it's that exact thing. Like, it'll be, like, basically the bartender's there. For whatever reason, they're like, we're so sorry, it's just, like, you know, it's the first nice day, so everyone's out to, like, at the nice places, and, like, and those nights are nice because then you can kind of mess around and experiment a little bit.
It's live practice.
We always, there's like a few places we play that are like that where, oh, you know what, tonight we're going to run some of the stuff we haven't played in a while.
Exactly,
and,
I mean,
so there can be.
I've done it. I mean, back in the day, we've done it. I mean, I've been in a bunch of bands that, you know, we didn't play for a lot of people, but you know, those were the fun days. And I hate to say it, Visors is the career day. You know what I mean? So it's like
That's nice.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I look at it that way now, just because I am at a certain point in my life, and it's, you know, I gotta make it feels like I gotta make everything count. You know what I mean? But that's not always the case, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, this podcast, for example, man, I've thought about doing it for like at least over a year.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're just kind of like, man, like, do we really need another guy like doing a podcast? And it's like, but then it's like, I just started thinking like, you know, I just want to do it for me.
Of course.
And like, because, you know, there's, for one, like, I did a couple other ones, and sometimes it's nice just to get to talk to people one-on-one.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I did Brad's, and Brad was a big kind of moment because he does his so well.
He does.
That I was just like, I would love to be able to offer that to other people too, like a chance to just kind of feel comfortable and just be able to chat and like I said, there's so many people like you that I've known for years, but like we
haven't sat down and actually, you know, talked like and had like deep like what are we about, you know, and that kind of stuff.
But I always felt like we had a lot of respect for each other.
Oh, for sure.
Like even back then, like, you know, I was getting hired to run lights for shows, and like I didn't really know much about what I was doing. But I knew how to make those lights go beep and boop, and
that's all that matters, dude. Like we all jump in this business somehow.
Yeah, and like just thinking about how that's led to like me learning how to program lights. And you know, I open them up and replace parts sometimes. Like just the road you can go down sometimes by, you know, just taking that leap.
Well, look at Beth, who's at Fillmore now. Beth, when I was running Fletcher's, Beth, I got Beth into running the door, and then I was like, hey, do you think you can just kind of take over the show and run the show? And then I showed her how to manage the show, and now I think she's the PM or the assistant PM at Fillmore now, and it's amazing. Like I'm so glad to see that happen for people.
I always think about Mike Mackery, I think was
Mike
his
Mackery,
name.
Yeah.
See, he was the one that was like, dude, come up here.
Sure.
I'll show you how these things work. And like open that door. And I haven't seen or heard from him since he left Bourbon Street and did his own thing. Like I don't even know what he's doing these days, but
we all need that. We all need that kind of leg up, you know, when it comes to back when I started in the business in '97, it was really hard to get into the business. It really was. It was like this. It was like a fraternity of like people that just didn't let people in. So it was much harder in back then, but. You know, I'm glad I kind of worked at it. Yeah,
and then yeah, like I said, you were kind of doing the PMing and stuff at Bourbon Street, and yeah. So what do you got coming up? I know you talked about the rap group. Anything else cool coming up in the future? You want to talk about?
All kinds of stuff, man. Yeah, we've got all kinds of stuff coming out. So. February 2nd, the Oliver Nelson remix of Fine Line comes out. Oliver Nelson's a big remixer in Europe. The remix is amazing. It sounds awesome. We just dropped a remix by our label mate Glamour Hammer that if you guys haven't heard it, it's a remix of Turning, our first single, which is, the remix is so good. It's just so good. I'll listen to it just because it makes me happy, not because I did anything on the song. And then we're just dropping single after single after single. Our next single should be our song Majesty with Finch from Pink Elephants.
Nice. This is probably going to come out probably early February.
Perfect, yeah.
So that'll probably be around that time.
Yeah.
So we'll organize like which track I'll feature.
Yeah, the Oliver Nelson remix should be kind of a big song for us. Like I said, he's a big remixer. And I think Oliver's probably going to actually mix Majesty with Finch. So, and that song, it is a banger. It is a banger. I cannot wait for people to hear it. And you know how Finch is. Like Finch kills it. So like, it's a great song. It's a great song. And that should be maybe end of February too. So, but then after that, I mean, I've been doing some voice acting. I did some acting last year. I'm just keeping busy in the entertainment world. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, if something comes across my desk, I do it. Yeah,
I know. I'm hoping you'll remix one of my songs here. I've always been like,
I have your stems.
Super intrigued by it. Like, and like I always think of like bands like Oasis.
Yeah.
Like some of their remixes are like, it's like a whole different version.
It's a whole different song.
Like it's one thing to just put like a dance beat under the song, but like I like when like it kind of like just creates this new like, it's like almost like a new interpretation.
Of course,
of the song.
Yeah. I mean, it's a new version. I mean, back in the day, remixes were just extended versions or like, maybe they make a dance version out of something. Now remixes are kind of just rewriting the song. That's why I only asked you for vocals and bass, I think, because I'm going to rewrite everything else around that. So that's kind of how, it's on the list.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. And I look forward to hearing what you got coming out. And
yeah, like I said, 2024 is going to be, I thought it was going to be 2023, and then we got hung up with the label. But our new label really believes in us. They just did, I don't know if you saw the video they shot in Stockholm, Sweden. So they're behind us. So, man, it's going to be a big year. Crossing my fingers.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will.
Follow the link in the video to hear some songs from Jeff's group, Visors.